But ever since that day in 2008, when I went back to work, I've always carried this guilt, as a lot of working mothers do, about working full time and not having the time with my son. I wanted to have my own freedom. And for the next kind of 3 years after that, I hid behind this mission of helping to heal the world by helping other healers to reach more people. I had this sudden realization that I'm a healer too. I wasn't starting from scratch. I was starting from the wisdom that I had gained. Every one of us in some shape or form have experienced being a people pleaser. My worth was tied to how useful I thought I was to people. That's why I've kind of led to focusing on self-worth in the work that I do, understanding that you are worthy just by being here. You don't.
Welcome back to our show, Empower Your Life with Cindy Marie. This is the show where we're focusing on embracing, expressing, not impressing, as we explore authentic stories and tools to help you live a more empowering, authentic, and joyful life. Today's guest is also known as the Joy Alchemist. She helps women prioritize their joy without guilt by releasing their self doubt, aligning with their higher power, and stepping into their authentic power. She's also an international best-selling author and a transformational coach who guides others in their journey to alignment and empowerment. Today's episode will explore reclaiming your power, building that self-worth, healing past wounds, and living joyfully. So let's all give a warm welcome to our next guest, Debbie Lucas. Debbie, thank you so much for being here with us and welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be joining you in this conversation and to be spreading the wonderful work that we all do in this field.
Yes, so before we start, for anything else, I would like to check in. How are you truly doing today?
I've had a great day, actually. It's evening time here in Scotland where I'm at. The sun has been shining and it's been lovely. I've taken my dog George out for a walk, and all the seeds that I've been planting since I resigned from my day job, and I'm sure we'll come on to that in a bit, are starting to sprout. It's springtime, so I'm starting to see the little fruits of my labor coming out, and a lot of it's been brought up a lot of self-doubt, and I'll talk about that as we go through the interview, but I've been recognizing it and taking the steps to address it and realign myself and realign my energy. And so I'm really enjoying this process. It's hard and it's deep work, but I know that it will pay off in time as I continue on this journey.
Awesome. Love hearing that. To emphasize, it's not going to be easy, but it's definitely worth it, as you and I know about this journey. And of course, this is one of the greatest parts of the show. As you may know, we have this tradition, and I love doing this because through this conversation, we hear our guests, their humble beginnings, and to their current mission. And from the last time that we have spoken, we discovered we have so much in common from our past experiences. So I would love you to share with us your journey, especially the transformation that you face, moments of self-doubt, right, to overwhelm and becoming the joy alchemist yourself. So share with us your story.
Gosh, so I think, looking back now with what I know and the wisdom that I have now, I have been on this journey since the day I was born, since before I was born. But I really truly only became aware and knew that there was something more out there, probably about 4 years ago, probably around about the time of the lockdown and the pandemic. But it kind of goes back to when my son was born in 2007. He'll be 18 this year. And when he was 8 months old, just because of circumstances, I had to go back to work full time. Didn't feel like I had a choice, although I recognize now I probably did. But thankfully, his grandmother was able to look after him for me, so I wasn't leaving him with strangers. But ever since that day in 2008, when I went back to work, I've always carried this guilt, as a lot of working mothers do, about working full time and not having the time with my son. But life just goes on, and the hustle and the daily grind just continues, and I was just treading to stand still, really. And really, it wasn't until lockdown happened and I was then working from home, as a lot of us were, And I realized that, the time that I had with my son in the home, I wasn't having to commute, I wasn't having to rush out in the mornings. I had time to prepare his lunch, prepare his dinners, and help him with his schoolwork and everything. That really kind of brought everything back to me again about, the guilt and why I wanted to have my own freedom. So in 2021, I undertook a life coaching certification with NLP and hypnosis. And that was really, I'd kind of been dabbling in spirituality for a while, but what I really liked about the NLP and hypnosis was that it gave me kind of some science and understanding of how, how manifestation works, how rewiring your brain works. And it's not just all woo-woo chanting and affirmations, it's physical changes you create in your brain and in your body. And I started I worked with some clients as a life coach, but really didn't trust myself, really didn't trust that I was capable and able to give what I thought I would like to give. And so I spent a lot of time learning how to establish myself in the online world, and how to
Yeah.
market, create websites, all the rest of it. And so kind of moved into teaching others how to do that, and then eventually actually doing the physical tech creation and funnel building and course creation in the background. And for the next kind of 3 years after that, I hid behind this mission of helping to heal the world by helping other healers to reach more people. That's a mouthful. But I then took part in a group coaching container last November, and I don't know, maybe about a week into it, I had this sudden realization that I'm a healer too. That's what this journey started at. I did my certifications, got all the qualifications. I have a social work career of 23 years of helping people. And that I was hiding behind that, and the kind of mask fell off, and I get goosebumps now even when I talk about it. And I remember sharing in the group in tears, like, this is what I'm here for. This is my soul's purpose. And at that point, I was kind of on the cusp of really kind of making a decision about resigning in my day job, and then panicked because I thought, well, now I'm going to have to rebrand, because I've been an online business manager, website designer, business coach in those various forms. Now I'm going to have to rebrand and start from scratch. And what I realized, and this is where the alchemy bit comes in, I wasn't starting from scratch. I was starting from the wisdom that I had gained, that
Yeah.
all the branding knowledge, all the funnel knowledge, all the tech knowledge that I had gathered helping other people meant that I could turn my business around and pivot into this new version of it so quickly. And that was literally, I started physically actively working on it in December 2024. And we're now recording this at the end of April 2025. And as I said, all those little seeds that I've been planting, all the groundwork that I've done is now starting, the little blossoms are starting to come out, and I'm starting to see the success. And now what I'm dealing with, and we'll come on to that, is the doubt that I can do this. And
Yeah.
now I'm suddenly realizing, okay, now people are interested in what I have to say, and now I'm going to have to actually like walk the talk. And so that's very much
Yeah.
what my journey on social media has been the last week or two, has been, this is what I'm struggling with, but here's how I've helped myself, and here's the tools you can use as well. So it's been a journey. It's going to be an ongoing journey. I know that every level I want to go up, I need to get anchored deeper down into myself, do that deeper healing work, because it's going to give me those solid foundations.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing all of those great things. Really, really important actually to highlight every time. This is why I love to hearing our guests' beginnings or journeys, because first of all, I'm guilty myself. Back then, I don't emphasize the power and the importance of being a mom and then working. We have this society condition that being a full-time mom somehow not recognized as important, right? And we're still on this, and you and I were working on this to bring more awareness that there's no such guilt to feel when you want beyond being a mom, and to have that freedom of yourself, that you can do both things at the same time without feeling guilt. And then the second thing that you mentioned that I truly appreciate, that we evolve, as we understand ourselves, we realize that, hang on a second, it's the same thing with me. Just like when you mentioned that you have certification with life coaching, I did. I have the mindset coaching and life coaching. And then slowly I realized there's a difference between just focusing on that and then recognizing that it's important also to put effort and time and space with spiritual journey or spiritual growth. And so I do believe that it's very important to share to people that as we evolve, as we know ourselves better, things will change, and that's okay. I think many people in our journey, whether you're professionals, you're a business coach, whatever, we tend to feel bad as well as we're living that particular project that we have, and then recognizing that it's no longer the same effort or the same focus that we had used to be, and then we realize that it's just and I think you and I will kind of agree that as we also put more spiritual growth, we realize to step back more,
Yes.
you know, and really trusting the process. And it's not easy,
Yes.
especially when you're dealing in a new environment, new project of your life, which in our case will be business. You know, I have no background, and you have this social work experience. And I love you mentioned about the you are healer as well yourself, and then you didn't realize that until that
Yeah.
specific moment. And I also believe that things happen for a reason on the moment when it's right, when the time
Yes.
is right. And so thank you so much for sharing that. Debbie, you're all about helping women prioritizing joy and unshakable self-worth, right?
Mhm.
And you might not be able to share the experience that you had before, but let's tackle in this particular conversation in your own journey, including the experience with people pleasing, right? What are those signs that you've seen as a pattern that you've recognized? And also the internal battles or challenges that made it so hard or difficult or challenging to overcome. Now, why am I asking this two questions, back to back? Because first, I think many people don't understand enough the importance of recognizing those patterns. And second, many people might recognize, but they always feel, some people, not everyone, some people would feel that they are on this journey alone. But once we unpack it, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, then people would understand that, oh, Debbie might have a different interpretation, but the context is the same.
Yes.
Therefore, we're giving them that space and energy or whatever that mean for you, an essence of hope, and shifting that belief that, oh, if she can, I can do too. So share with us your thoughts on this.
Gosh, I think I could sit there for hours and talk about people
I
pleasing because it is such a
know.
theme through my life. And I think probably, every one of us in some shape or form have experienced being a people pleaser. And I think that, people pleasing can take many different forms. It can look like keeping the peace. It can look like, trying to be helpful to other people. It could look like, keeping yourself small so that you're not overshadowing anybody else. It can look like never asking for what you want or need. And I had experienced that in many shapes or forms, but through my healing journey, the bit that really kind of came to me was the fact that my worth was tied to how useful I thought I was to people. So
Mm,
that looked like me forcing my help onto people, even if they didn't ask or need it or want it. And that
mhm,
came across as controlling in relationships, even though that was never my intention. But I
mhm,
believe that unless I was being helpful to other people, I wasn't worthy. And that was a completely unconscious belief that I unpacked over time. And that realization was huge. And I can remember the day I had it with the transformational coach I was working with at the time. And the tears streaming down my face, going, I can still be of help to other people without my worth being tied to that. And that was massive. And I think, that's why I've kind of led to focusing on self-worth and the work that I do and what I talk about, because that is the fundamental bit in terms of appreciating yourself,
mm,
understanding that you are worthy just by being here. You don't need to do anything else. but also that, unless you feel worthy of all your dreams and desires, you may achieve some of them at various points in your life, but there'll always be some self-sabotage or something happening that will pull you back to your status quo. And that's when we start talking, we can again get into frequency and vibrations. But unless you're vibrating and your frequency is at that level of, I am worthy of having whatever it is I desire, whether it's just having a new car, whether it's having the $1 million, whether it's having the big fancy car, whatever it is for you. If you don't feel worthy, genuinely worthy of having it, to sustain it, that's going to be really tricky, and it's going to feel like hustle, and it's going to feel like hard work to, first of all, achieve it, and then to maintain it and sustain that lifestyle, whatever that looks like. And I think that's the core for me around everything that I do. And yeah, the people pleasing bit, when I started saying no, the guilt came in big time. And I used to have these elaborate excuses of why I couldn't do something, or why I couldn't go out with friends or help somebody with something. And the first few times I just said no. It was really, really uncomfortable. But now it's getting easier. And I think now my friends and family appreciate it, because they know when I do say yes, it's because I have the energy to show up, and that I'm showing up because I genuinely want to be there and help them, or be with them, or do whatever it is we're doing. And so it does take people time to adjust.
Yeah.
And thankfully, so far, I've not lost any friendships or relationships as a result of that. But I know for a lot of people that can happen. But I always see it as, if they love you, truly love you for who you are, they will stick with you. If they don't, then they were only using you and benefiting from your lack of boundaries.
Yeah, that's big words.
Mhm.
The they don't love you. Uh, I think I think well, it first of all, it's great that you are keeping the relationships that you had. I'm not sure whether I have shared with you that when I transitioned to, I believe, who I am truly are, I first consciously decide to remove many people in my life, and really adjusting very well still is with the family. I think the family will be the
Yeah,
most challenging yet biggest learning point that the universe can give to you or share with you. And it's great to hear that you are keeping your relationship, like the closest people in your life, because not everyone, like what you said, will keep it. And in my case, yeah, I have so many people in my life that I have decided to move forward without them, and sharing the love from far. And I think, I do believe that we are connected always. It's just that at some point in this particular journey or stage of your life, you have to disconnect or separate yourself. And if it's meant to meet again, then it will be. If it's not, then it's not. But I used to have, for me, you mentioned one of the signs for being a people pleaser is that just be small so that you're part of the circle. And I've been doing that. And now that's why, for me, my advocacy is really shining your authentic self, because I think, as what you're saying about self doubt, I think that's also connected to being authentic yourself and embracing that. And when knowing self more than anybody else, of course, I won't say that I've never felt of self-doubt or self-sabotaging. I think it's part of our journey. It's a yin yang. It's
yeah,
about navigating it through, and understanding that, yeah, it's part of it. And don't get caught on this, but like observing it, like, okay, she's coming. Let's embrace that she's coming, but not. I think it's also important to not suppress that, because when we don't attend to our feelings or emotions, that's going to be the challenge. And going to the next question, you mentioned specifically that the joy is our birthright, that led a foundation of self-worth, obviously. And you mentioned also the forgiveness helps us, heal past hurts or past wounds. So I'm super curious, does that mean it opens door more to joy and build that solid self-worth that you're talking about? And if so, like in this case, you also mentioned that forgiveness, and of course, I'm aware with this, but I think I'm a big believer that the more we talk about it, the more that we bring awareness about it, the more that people will be enlightened and have that idea that, oh, forgiveness is all about freeing yourself than anyone
Mm-hmm.
else. So please help us expand or elaborate further these two particular things, Debbie.
Yeah. So, starting with joy being your birthright, I absolutely fundamentally believe that. And life's not meant to be hard. I know people will talk about, relationships take hard work. Achieving in your career and climbing the career ladder is hard work and it's hustle. And earning the money that you want is hard work and it's hustle, and all the things. And parenting is hard work and it's hustle. But when you are aligned and when you are in flow, everything
Mm,
just naturally feels easy, and that brings joy naturally. The bit around forgiveness for me is, that yes, we're born in a natural state of joy. We're born in a natural state of knowing that we can get anything that we want. We cry and we're provided for. For the most part. Sadly, there are some children and babies who don't experience that, but over time, our families, society, culture, our peer groups, we adopt these limiting beliefs, I then talk about the self-worth loop, that the more you believe something, and usually in the negative sense, the more you'll attract situations and people that will reinforce that, and that loop just becomes almost stronger and stronger, and it becomes really hard to break free from it. But I'm a big believer in the law of polarity. So if this is true, the opposite and equal is also true.
yeah.
And so, once you realize that you are the creator of your reality, and this
Mm-hmm.
is a bitter pill to swallow, and it was a hard one for me, that every decision, consciously or unconsciously, that I have made throughout my life has created my reality. Now,
Mm-hmm.
99% of the time, until you start on a spiritual or a healing journey, your decisions are unconscious. You don't tap into your intuition. You kind of just go with the people pleasing bit. What do other people want me to do? What would other people think of me? That kind of thing. So, the bit around forgiveness for me, and I think, a lot of, the big theme around forgiveness, and when people talk about it, is forgiving the other person. But
Mm,
the bit, for me, the realization of accepting radical responsibility for myself and my current reality meant that I had to realize I was not responsible for other people's feelings, actions, or behavior, or their reactions to me. That was all their own stuff.
yeah.
I am responsible for my actions and my reactions and my thoughts and my feelings, and that's what creates my reality. So what I
Mm,
had to do was not forgive, all the people who I felt had wronged me in the past, all the people who I felt had created my reality. And I had to forgive myself for the decisions that I made, even though they were unconscious. And that's
mm,
still, like, even now I can feel some dissonance in my body, like there's a bit of like, oh, it still feels a bit, so that's showing me there's still a bit of work to be done there.
mm,
But forgiving myself, I used to say, forgive yourself for allowing things to have happened to you, because that's, again, passing the responsibility on to somebody else. It's
mm,
forgiving yourself for the decisions that you have made throughout your life. But then, as Oprah Winfrey says, once you know better, do better. And so once you know that, for the best part, and again, we're going to come on to some of the other bits that I practice on a daily basis, it's about tapping into your intuition, tapping into what feels good and feels right, because there'll be sometimes things you want to do or you want to say, and there's kind of this niggle that you think, this is not the right way to approach this situation or this person, or that, to take this next step or action, it doesn't feel right. That's when you need to start tapping into that, and actually, is this fear, or is this my intuition telling me it's not the right thing? And
mm,
that's where a lot of the alchemy work comes in. Like, what have we learned from our past? What are the lessons? What are the blessings? And how can we use that to create our future moving forward?
yeah. Oh, yeah. So many things that
Mhm.
I feel like worth to unpack, but I feel like, okay, there's a sequel that perhaps important to discuss that further. Because first you mentioned many people don't understand the depth of forgiving others actually freeing yourself. And I encountered this many times previously when I posted this, I think 2 3 years ago, and someone commented that it's interesting, and I said, well, why do you think it's interesting? In what area it's interesting, negative or positive? It's interesting that that's my perspective. And I think, and I have explained this even yesterday when I had a conversation with a friend of mine that we're collaborating for a project. I said, when we are not able to give way, to forgive and let go, and give them the peace and love, whether they deserve it or not, basically there are two things that playing in the way, which are the ego and pride, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing wrong of having those two things in our lives, but understanding, that's why discernment very very important to process in our lives. What are those things meant to be played in our lives, when it's not to act, and when can welcome them in this particular situation. So that's one thing that you mentioned about forgiveness. And then the other thing is that passing the fault or the blame. One of the things that I've learned first, big time, and not many people actually can accept this, is that take full responsibility of your own life. That's it. Whenever you catch yourself blaming to others, step back. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
but of course, many of us unable to do that because we're not giving the space and time yet to process on knowing ourselves better, right? Because it requires a lot of time. And you mentioned the polarity, the loop, and all of that. Many of us wanting to achieve success, abundance, prosperity, but we forget how many years have you actually believed with that limiting beliefs? And then you
Mm-hmm.
expect that that
Yeah,
limiting
overnight.
beliefs will just, poof. There's no such thing as even the magic pill. You
Mm-hmm.
take that pill one day and it'll come back the next day. Why? Because you have to unpack that. So
Yes.
I always share to people that give yourself grace and love
Mm-hmm.
when you are in a place of transitioning, of knowing yourself better. You're going to experience the loop because
Yes.
yourself will keep on challenging you. Are you sure you want to know
Mm-hmm.
yourself better?
Oh yes. Oh yes. Yeah,
Right?
100%. And I was actually having a conversation earlier today as well with somebody who practices and uses a lot of neuroscience in her coaching work. And she kind of explained to me that, the literal neural pathways in your brain, it's a physical nerve with like a coating that gets formed over it, and that coating gets stronger and stronger. And that talk about limiting beliefs, like the more that's reinforced with that self-worth loop, that gets reinforced. And when you're trying to change that, basically that pathway is having to disintegrate and a literal new one formed, but the brain wants to conserve energy, so that's a lot of work for the brain. So like physically your brain is kind of going, no, don't do it. But your ego, your unconscious mind, equally, it loves the status quo because it's safe. It knows what's happening, even though it's maybe not great and it's not comfortable, but it knows, the familiarity of it is safer
Yeah.
than the unknown. And that's the kind of work that I had to do throughout this, and resigning from my job and stepping into this unknown of running my own business and not knowing where my income was going to come from. So that's so super important. And I think the bit that you said there as well is so crucial, because I'm sitting here talking like I've got it all together. I most certainly don't, but it has taken me years to get here. Yes, I've worked with coaches who've probably helped me get there quicker, even yet still. And that's what I'm now doing, and sharing my journey and the tools and the wisdom that I've gained over time to help people get there quicker. But it takes time, as you say. It's not a magic pill. You don't just wake up one morning and suddenly your mindset is perfect and you can achieve anything that you want. It does take time, and you will get pulled back. That's what I call the bungee cord effect. It will keep pulling you back, but the longer you stretch it, the more you stretch it, the more resistant that becomes, and you can stay forward. And it's not one step forward, two steps back, but two steps forward and one step back, and you keep inching forward that way.
Beautiful, beautiful. And oh God, I think from that, again, I believe for everyone watching or listening right now that you found this episode super, super interesting and you want to delve in more to one of those topics that we just discussed, but just very, very little, give us a comment and let us know if you want to talk about in depth with Debbie again, and would love to have her on our show again to deeper, sorry, for all of those conversations, because I think it's very, very important. Now, moving on to being an optimist. I'm naturally
Mhm.
an optimist person, so I always ask our guests whether they're optimists or not, because from my experience here on our show, people have different interpretations. Some people don't want to be called that optimist. So, first, I want to know if you're an optimist. And second, how do you keep yourself having that optimistic mindset? And if you're not an optimist, how do you keep yourself in an uplifting mindset? And this is also a place where you can share with us those practices that you have mentioned earlier, whether that's part of your program, also part of the program, but also your personal routines or practices to remind you every day that joy comes from within, that it helps you to build that foundation as well to the self worth. Hey, beautiful souls, quick message. If you're looking for support on your personal or professional journey, whether it's through coaching, singing, or speaking at your next event, I'm here to support you all the way to rediscover your authentic voice, empower your life, and be unstoppable. Let's connect and see how we can work together. Schedule a call with me. Now, if you would love to sponsor our Empower Your Life show with yours truly, we would be thrilled to partner with you. Simply reach out or contact us at contact@cindymarie.net, or the link is available in the description below. Thank you so much for listening. Now let's go back to the episode.
I would say yes, I am an optimist. I've
Okay.
always had a positive outlook in life and always believed that, things will work out, even when I was in my unconscious era. But in terms of how I create joy and keep the optimism alive for myself, two main things that I do. One is practicing gratitude.
Mm,
It's such a key part, because I can't remember who said this, but there's a saying that if you're grateful, you cannot hold a negative thought in mind. And it's so true. And I remember when I first learned that, I experimented with it in times when I was feeling anxious or worried, or something was happening in my life. I would just literally find one thing to be grateful for, and it might even just be the sun shining outside, or even if it's raining, the rain, what just one thing, on my breath. And like instantly my state shifted. And that, so like, I'm like, that is so so true. And so finding, sometimes there's a song that I listen to every single morning. It's my alarm on my phone. It's called Grateful. Grateful by Saint Finnegan. Is an amazing artist, very spiritual in his words. And it's like, grateful I woke up again, grateful I took a breath again. And that's the opening lyrics. And it's like, yes, that's enough to be grateful for, that I'm here another day on this earth. But the other bit that I really love doing throughout the day is little moments of joy. Whether it's hearing the songs of the birds outside, whether it's, like my cup of tea, that's my many moments of joy, because I drink so many cups of tea during the day. And I just like use all my senses. I feel the heat of the mug. I smell, if it's a herbal tea, I smell it. I
oh,
taste it. I can hear the kettle boiling when I'm making the tea. And sometimes it's just taking a breath and just pausing, smiling at a stranger. I love to walk past somebody and send kindness from my heart to theirs, even if they're not making eye contact with me, and it just makes
yes.
me feel happier. So joy is often seen as these big moments and these big achievements, but actually little moments in the day, having a laugh. I was laughing at my dog earlier. He was chasing a cat in the back garden, and it was so funny, and I just stood in the garden laughing. And for my neighbors will think I'm crazy, because they wouldn't have seen this cat and the dog. But it's just, the more you can appreciate the little things in life, the more you'll attract that, and that will grow and evolve and expand into bigger things that will bring you even more joy.
Beautiful. When you're sharing the sorry, not great, but gratitude, and also the small little things, uh, I was smiling and laughing because you reminded me of myself. And I was sharing this with my husband yesterday. One of those things that I find very interesting and at the same time weird, because I'm not naturally like that. But, and I'm super curious if you feel the same way. I recently feel so at peace and just relaxed that if there's nothing else that I would like to, I mean, part of my high performance personality, I would just sit down in the living room and watching the window with the birds chirping, greetings or making their songs, and then just looking at the outside. I told you yesterday I saw this butterfly, and just feel in awe, fascination, all of those positive ways of living. I just said, oh my God, life is so beautiful. And I was so shocked with myself because I'm like, who is this person?
Mhm.
Mm, who are you? I'm enjoying it at the same time. Isn't it weird? But so that's first thing that I would love to know, if you have ever felt that. And at the same time, don't you think that this is also way of experience from the moment that you're embracing the spiritual growth?
Yeah, sorry, I just kind of went quiet there because that landed and just like resonated in my body so strongly. The whole bit around rest, that was a big thing that I worked on just not so long ago, because like my when we work in a corporate world, and that's fine if you do, but your time and your value is attached to your performance and your
Mm,
output. And then moving into running my own business and managing my own time, and sometimes like that feeling like my energy was running low and I wanted to rest, but then the guilt of, oh, but I'm not doing something to earn money right now, was
mhm,
huge. And that, like, once I realized that actually when I rested I could then come back and be even more productive,
mm,
was massive. And so now, like, if I need to down tools and I'm not feeling it, I down tools and I'll go and sit on the sofa with my cup of tea. I'll take my dog out for a walk, and then I'll come back and I'll be more energized. So it's like it's totally refreshed my view and take on rest generally. And then I forgot the second part of your question again.
the
The bit of being
spiritual.
in the now. Yes, yes. Um, Being in the now is so important, because now is all that we ever have. If we live in
Mm,
the past, we're living in that kind of negative vibe of all the things that went wrong. If we're living in the future, we're living in anxiety.
yeah.
And so the bit about bringing back into the intuition and using like the spirituality bit is like, in every single moment, if I'm kind of at a crossroads about what do I do now, do I focus on this or that, or do I choose this or do I choose that, I use my intuition to go like, what choice is going to lead me closer to that future version of me that I am working towards becoming. And that's how I embody my future version, because that's what future Debbie would do. She would work on this because this is going to move the needle more than the other thing. And that's so important. So but being present in the now allows you to experience life in gratitude, because you can see all
Yeah.
the wonderful things that you already have, but it also
Mhm.
allows you to be conscious so that you can tap into that inner voice and that intuition within you and make the decisions based from that.
Oh, love it. I love it. Yes. The importance of being in the now. And I love you also mentioned when you're in the corporate, I think a lot of people can relate to that. You're attached, your value and worth with how people see or value you in the corporate. And so this part of what you just said, very, very important to remind people that detach, you know, that's part of the work, but it's not you. You are worth it. You are whole, you're complete no matter what. And gosh, there's so many things that I feel we're having a very smooth and at peace conversation. I don't know if you felt that, but I
Oh,
feel that
definitely.
so beautifully. And but out of those things that we have tackled or talk about, Debbie, I have a last question for you before I ask you for this, how people can connect. You know, out of these conversations that we had, would there be any message that you feel at this moment people watching or listening right now or later on need to hear it? that it's super important that we didn't talk about as earlier? And what would that be?
I think what's coming up when you ask that question, and it's something that I've been working on as well the last little few weeks, has been connecting with my inner child and
Mm,
healing my inner child. Because, as I said earlier on in the conversation, from when we're born, our families, our cultures, our society, our peer groups, form are a big part of forming our personality, and we lose that core identity of who we truly are. But if we can go back and reconnect with our inner child, and we can empower her or him to manage the emotions and to be strong and to be resilient, it
mm.
carries through our proverbial hypothetical timeline to now, and we show up in a different way. And that work that I've done has been so, so powerful. And that includes that forgiveness bit, because you're having to forgive all the choices you made since you were a little child to now. And it's part of that timeline healing that I do when I'm working with clients. And so that's super important, is to kind of tap into and do some healing work with your inner child, because that is where the core of your identity sits, and that's what's going to help you to not become the better the version 2.0 that so many coaches talk about. You're going to come home to yourself, and you're going to bring your core identity and that true version of you back to the front, and that's where the authenticity comes out as well.
I love you talk about inner child. I have spoken yesterday with someone, and he's an amazing guy that really advocating big thing. And I mentioned about that inner child. And I said, when we are so focused to give way ourselves because of our big project, we forget ourselves, And I always include, apart from inner child, to make sure that we attend, because I'm a big believer that we are our own teachers, we are all our own students, and we are also having that inner child with us. So these are three personas that very important to talk to ourselves, that you can be your teacher when you caught
Yeah.
yourself, okay, the teacher version of you, what is she or he gonna do? And then if you're a student, okay, what am I supposed to do? I think becoming a student more on a curiosity, right? You
Yes.
ask, you don't care of what other people would say if you ask something out of curiosity because you want to learn. And then going back to what you said, inner child, and I do believe on that, because I myself, I have to go through with this healing, and still is. It's not over yet, I believe on that.
Yeah,
But
no, definitely.
yeah, but I can say to everyone watching or listening right now that I'm in a better place than before, that I have so many baggages, I have so many kind of pointing the blame to others, but now it's more on me, and more love, and really more kindness to people and to myself, and love it. It's great to remind everyone that we have to attend to our inner child, because that inner child really deserve a lot of love coming from us. So thank you so much for sharing this. And I'm sure that with our back and forth conversation, there's so many people out there very curious to know more about what you do, to know more about you, about what you offer, so where or how they can connect or reach out to you.
Yeah, so I hang out on most of the social media platforms. So I'm on Facebook. You can find my personal profile, Debbie Lucas. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on TikTok as well. I've just started becoming a bit more active there too.
Nice.
And I post different content across the different platforms, all in the same themes, but it's kind of whatever resonates most with the audiences there. So pick whichever one you hang out the most.
Yeah.
My website is debbielucas.me, so debbielucas.me,
Mm-hmm.
and that's got all the information on what I do. I've got a Facebook community that I do kind of weekly oracle card drawings. We do moon phase guidance and things like that. And yeah, I've got my own podcast as well called Your
Oh,
Worth Your
yes,
Way.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so you can find me all over the place. I've found my voice, and it's through conversations like this with you as well. So I'm loving that, and I'm loving just sharing my wisdom and my journey, and how I have evolved, and then how I use that to help other people as well. So I'd love to connect with people there.
Oh, beautiful. And as I've always saying to people, don't worry. The information, what she just mentioned, will be available on our podcast, on our blog, and also once the episode available. So you won't miss any ways to connect or reach out to Debbie. And this is a wonderful conversation that we have, Debbie. So much full of joy and empowering with this episode. And for everyone watching or listening, if you found this episode resonated with you, please share it to spread the joy. And we love to hearing all the things, the great things that you come across with hearing or listening to our episode. And until next time, with yours truly, Cindy Marie, here to empower your life. Thank you so much, Debbie, for sharing your joy and light with us.
Thank you. You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode with Debbie Lucas. Remember, your joy is your birthright. Prioritize your self worth and enjoy every little moments in your life and cultivate optimism. By doing so, you can reclaim your power and live a truly joyful and authentic life. If you enjoyed this episode, please share your thoughts with us. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who might benefit from it. Follow our podcast and leave a review and help us grow so we can reach and empower more people's lives. Until next time, stay optimistic, stay curious, and don't forget to have fun. Believe in yourself. You've got what it takes to pursue your dreams and make a positive impact. Keep going and be unstoppable.